Good day to my oral communication students. This is Mr. Gara, your instructor in oral communication. For today's video, we will discuss the barriers to effective communication. Now, by seeing the illustration, we can see there are two people communicating with each other, and there is a barrier between them. So there are certain obstacles which sometimes hinder the process of communication, making it less useful for both the sender and the receiver. So in this video, we will categorize the different barriers to effective communication into three. The first one is the barriers involving words. We have barriers involving people's background, and we have the last one that is the barrier involving the physical barriers. So don't forget the three categories to barriers to effective communication. So we will begin with the barriers involving words. So there are four. We have the language. The second one is the disorganized message. The third one is ambiguity and overuse of abstractions. And the fourth and the last one is the information overload. So barriers involving words. There are words play an important role in the process of communication. Any disturbance or distraction in the way the message is presented may lead to miscommunication. Now, let us delve first to the language. So we all know that the language is the principal method of communication. If the sender is making excessive use of technical terms, now it will become difficult for the receiver to understand the message clearly. So there is miscommunication. Language or semantic barriers arise when many words have more than one meaning, and the sender and the receiver tries to communicate in a language which themselves do not understand properly. So this is the problem because there are words that have different meanings in different languages. So this can cause miscommunication. So that's why it is considered as a barrier. Now let us proceed to the second one, which is the ambiguity and the overuse of abstractions. So even if the message is presented in a non-realistic or vague context involving a lot of notions, the receiver won't be able to connect with the idea properly. So this is a problem. The learning things half said or using too many generalizations, or you are using proverbs, or you are using sayings, that can lead to miscommunication. So these are not clear and can lead to misinterpretation. So if you are using quotations, sayings, and using words that are half said, this can lead to miscommunication, or this will be a barrier to communication. So we have the language, the second one is the ambiguity and the overuse of abstractions, and the third one is disorganized message. This happens when the words are not organized systematically to form a powerful message, so it loses its efficiency and meaning. So when the speaker or the sender is communicating, they have the responsibility to create a message that is, first of all, clear. Second, the message should be coherent, and of course, it is understandable by the receiver. So if the speaker or the sender fails to do it, the result may be confusion or rejection of ideas from the receiver. So it is very important that the message being sent or communicated is properly or systematically organized. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is information overload. I know you are all familiar with this term. The effectiveness of communication reduced when a person keeps on speaking for an extended period of time, thus leading to the receiver's exhaustion, who won't be able to keep track of everything that is conveyed. So when people are given time and they used it to give too much information, they are likely to make errors also. So they may also delay the processing or delay the responding of information or messages at least for some time. So it is important also to take a pause to ask your audience if you are addressing to a group. So it is important to pause for a while and then ask for the audience if how they are doing, if they are processing the information correctly, or they need also a break so that information overload will not happen. All right, so those are the different um, barriers involving words. So we have the language, the ambiguity and overuse of abstractions, the disorganized message, and of course the information overload. Now let us proceed to the second category, which is the barriers involving people's background. So people belong to different backgrounds, that is true. We came from different cultures, we have different educational levels, gender, and of course the other factors. So these attributes majorly affect the efficiency of the communication process. So let us go first to attitudinal differences. Attitudinal differences, these are these are behaviors or these may be perceptions that prevent people from communicating effectively. So at times, people are resistant to understand or change their mind when they have set their views about a particular topic. Their attitude obstructs meeting the purpose of communication. Since each one of us have different perspective, so this might block us in receiving the ideas of others. Now, this may result from personal conflicts. We have poor management, resistant to change, or we resist to have change, and also lack of motivation. So sometimes the barrier is within us on our ability to accept the ideas and perspectives of other people because of differences. The next one is demographic differences. The difference in age in our generation, gender, status, tradition, and etc. These different demographic differences creates a lack of understanding among people and thus hinders the process of communication. So if you are a wise speaker, you should attend or pay careful attention to the demographic factors like this one. We have your receiver or your audience. If you take a closer look or a careful attention to their age, their gender, the religions, or even the ethnic backgrounds, the education, and even also the occupation of these audiences. So, taking consideration these factors will lead you to be an effective communicator also. The next one is lack of common experience or perspective. The experience of a person develops their perspective of seeing things in a particular way. The perspective varies from person to person. Now, we should value diversity or the varied perspectives because individuals, each one of us, hold different viewpoints about the same situation. So, this can reduce objectivity, and each one must learn to listen and examine each perspective systematically. So we should learn as communicators, we should learn how to value each other's opinions and perspectives. Now, let us proceed to the next one, which is jumping to conclusions. So, some people lack the patience of listening to others and often jump to conclusions between the communication, thus neglecting the motive of the message. So, jumping to conclusion is a physiological term referring to communication obstacle where a particular person judges or they directly reach unavailable or unwanted conclusions. So this is there is an insufficient information, and from that you tried to make assumptions right away. So which is not good, which is also a barrier to communication. So all right, so we have discussed the attitudinal differences, the demographic differences, lack of common experience or perspective, and of course, the last one is jumping to conclusions. Now, let us proceed to the last category, which is actually the physical barriers. So these barriers can be experienced directly but challenging to overcome. A physical barrier can be natural or human made and is easy to spot. We have the noise, the bad architecture, and closed door are all physical barriers to listening. So it's important to take note that physical barriers refers to the physical environment or the place where you are communicating. So we have the physical distance. This is the first one. So when people communicate over long distances, they miss out non-verbal aspect of communication. So since the gestures and expressions of both the receiver and the sender are important, since their expressions and gestures are not visible, so this can lead to misinterpretation. So the geographic distance between the two, the sender and the receiver, are important. Communication is generally easier over short distances as more communication channels are available, and of course less technology is required. I know that the ideal communication is, of course, the face to face communication because it prevents, when using networks or the internet, we have the different network issues, technical glitches that can happen along the communication process. So it also prevents us to the personal communication. So that's why physical distance is a barrier also. The next one is the noise. The environment or the communication system sometimes involve unwanted noise which interrupts the process of communication, making it inefficient. So noise is any persistent or random disturbance which reduces or obscures. Now, it brings confusion to both the sender and the receiver. It confuses the clarity of the message. It also distracts the receiver, causing them not to hear the message properly. Now let us proceed to the last one, which is the physiological barriers. One of the most common barriers to effective communication is the physical disability of people involved, both the sender and the receiver. So some of these are hearing impairment, poor eyesight, and stammering. So this, when we say physiological barriers, this refers to the limitation of the human body and of course our human mind. This may include our memory, our attention, and of course the perception. So this results from individuals' personal discomfort. We have, for example, we have ill health, we are not feeling well, so that is also a barrier to effective communication that causes us not to pay careful attention to the message or to the sender, of course, because we are not feeling well. So we have also poor eyesight and we have also the hearing impairment. So these different factors are considered physiological barriers. Now, I'd like to read this. The significant purpose of communication is to pass on the information to the receiver in such a manner that it does not lose its significance. The message must be received in its, of course, purest form. Now, to my students in oral communication, may I request you to please get your lecture notebook, and at this time, we will answer a quiz. Now, on your lecture notebook, this is actually a multiple choice type of quiz. So just put the choice, the letter, and of course the given. The letter, again, the letter, and the given. So let us proceed to the quiz. Number one, when people communicate over long distances, they miss out on non-verbal aspects of communication. What barrier is this? A. Noise. B. Physical distance. C. Jumping to conclusions. Or D. Attitudinal differences. So you put the letter and the given. Let's have the second one. If the sender is making use of excessive technical terms, it will become difficult for the receiver to understand the message clearly. What barrier is this? You can pause the video for a while if you are still answering. We have letter A, noise, B, language, C, jumping to conclusions, D, ambiguity and overuse of abstractions. Number 3. When words are not organized systematically to form a powerful message, they lose their meaning. What barrier is this? A. Noise, B. Disorganized message, C. Jumping to conclusions, or D. Ambiguity and overuse of abstraction. Let's proceed to number 4. Some people lack the patience to listen to others and often jump to conclusions between the communication. What barrier is this? Letter A, noise, B, language, C, jumping to conclusions, D, jumping to conclusion. So you can just pick one of those. Let's have number 5. One of the most common barriers to effective communication is the physical disability of the people involved. What barrier is this? A. Noise, B. Language, C. Physiological barriers, or letter D. Jumping to conclusion. For numbers 6, 7, and 8, you put there the 3 categories or the barriers to effective communication. That is 6, 7, and 8. For numbers 9 to 10, you have to explain the importance of knowing the barriers to effective communication. So the question is, why is it important that we have to know all these barriers, all the 3 categories, and all its types? Why is it important? Alright, so just answer those questions on your lecture notebook. I'd like to end this video, the barriers of effective communication, by having the quote, no? In many ways, effective communication begins with mutual respect. Communication that inspires, encourages others to do their best. This has been Mr. Giovanni Gara, and thank you for watching this video, Barriers to Effective Communication.